Well, good morning, everyone. I am showing 11 o'clock, so we will go ahead and call this FAST meeting to order. Jen, could you please do roll call for us?
Regent Mendoza,
Present.
Regent Johnston.
Here.
Regent Prasker,
Present.
Regent Wolfmore,
Present.
Ruthie Knox. Here. Rusty Munholland.
Present.
That concludes roll.
Thank you, Jen. Do we have any introductions for the group this morning? All right, so our first item of business is to approve the minutes from the February 26th BASC meetings. So if there aren't any questions or corrections to those minutes, I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We will jump down to board discussion agenda items and talk about the Kansas Free Application Days. Misty?
Thank you. So the agenda item before you is tabled from the February board meeting, BASC meeting. During the February 12th BASC meeting, I presented the aggregate application data followed by yield data from the 2023 Kansas Free Application Days. This showed a 30% yield for applications submitted during that 3-day initiative. So during that discussion, Provost expressed appreciation for the spirit of the application days, but noted the initiative was not cost neutral. They also discussed the administrative burden it takes on their admissions offices and the challenges with the duplicated applications. And as a result, it was suggested that Provost collaborate on ways to streamline the application process and also assess the costs. Following these discussions, the Provost and enrollment managers met and provided the board office some recommendations, and that included that the Kansas Free Application Days continue on the dates that were consistent with 2024, which aligns with the recommendations found in your agenda packet and also from the February board meeting. I can summarize that report provided to board staff by provosts or defer to provosts on their summarized report, whatever.
I can just give a quick highlight on that and say again, thank you for giving us the time and the opportunity for us to have our enrollment management folks get together and talk and give us some ideas. We passed along a brief report on that, and I'll just say some of the highlights of that and invite my colleagues in if they have anything particular to say that came from their enrollment management strategies. I do think in the staff recommendation, we see that probably the most important thing that we asked is that we have that 3-day window be consistently the same time every year and keep it at that 3-day window so that we can monitor year over year performance and see what the impact is, because what we need to see is the real yield rate is from application to admission to actually people coming to campus. And while the applications are up and admissions are up, we haven't yet seen the full yield that we would hope to see out of that given the effort we're putting into that. We also did present a couple of other ideas that are really, I think, in partnership with the board staff and communicating to those throughout the state who are doing the work of inviting students in, that we ask them to, first of all, not require a student to apply to every institution when they have no intention of going to every institution, because that's paperwork that's we have to process that has a true cost and FTE effort with it. And so that they choose, so that we don't require it. And then we also encourage students to choose 2 or 3 that they're really thinking about going to, as opposed to, again, just an across the board sweep. And beyond that, we did, I think our enrollment management folks noted that because there's so much rhetoric in nationally around higher education and the a perceived lack of value in getting a degree, that anything that the board or that anybody can do at this point in time to help students in the state of Kansas really understand the value proposition and the benefit they get, that if over time we develop marketing campaigns that are just truly go get, post-secondary credentials, no matter what they are, no matter where they are, there's real value to that. That would be beneficial for all of us, I think. And I think those were kind of the highlights of what we said. I don't know if any of my peer provosts or Jill, I know you're online, if anybody has any follow-up on that. Seeing none.
Thank you, Provost Pickelmeyer. Misty, I had a question about, the provost concluded that for it to remain consistent those 3 days, does that align with the recommendation that staff is bringing forward?
Yeah, it
Okay.
does.
And then I know that within the report that we received from the provost, it discussed encouraging students to apply to just 2 or 3 schools versus all of them because of all the reasons that you just mentioned. Is there a way to monitor that, or is it just encouraging them to do it that way?
We can monitor that.
So let's say that a student goes in and applies at 3 and then decides they're gonna apply at 4th one. That'll just show up in our data, it's not necessarily gonna prevent them from applying at the 4th one, will it?
Oh, no,
Okay.
it's just something to track in terms of what the trend is. We won't stop anybody from applying to
Right.
everybody if that's what they choose to do. It's just an encouragement as we orient the counselors who run the programs. So we're not gonna kick anybody out of an application.
I was just wondering about the logistics, so.
And I think some of that data will come out with our KEDS AY report as well. During our Apply Kansas training last year, we provided that recommendation just to, one, extend grace to our admissions offices because the time frame, but also we put in there, make sure that you're not making students apply, but rather encouraging if they have the intent to actually attend there. So we'll continue to send that message.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the committee members?
On the percentage that you reported, 30% increase in application time, but are we assessing that result based on like 2023 or 2022? What's the percentage of applicants that came in, right, versus what's the applicant percentage in 2024 data?
So we don't have the 2024 data from the aggregate collection, we only have the 2023. Next year, though, we'll have the 2024 yield data. Are you talking application?
I'm looking at what's the original trend of applications, right? And then because of the 3 free days of application, I see that it increased the percentage of people, applying during those days. But would that traffic be normal for us over the time, is what I'm trying to assess.
I'd say briefly, I think to answer your question, Regent Prasker, is because of where we are, there's the application rate, then the admission rate, and then the actual yield, who shows up rate.
Correct.
And I think to staff's point, we need 1 more year to really see the impact of that yield rate fully. And because the program's so new, so
course.
we know that the applications went up significantly.
Okay.
What we don't really know is the matriculation rate as best we know. And then we
True.
don't really know what that means for retention. So we'll track all of that over time. And I think as each year goes by, we'll be able to give you a more comprehensive yield rate on, and not only did they come, did they retain, did they graduate?
Right. Very good.
And then just to follow up on that, thank you. It would be interesting to look at, the 2022 applications received, comparing that to the 2023 where we had apply free days, then 2024 where we had apply free days. I would anticipate we would obviously see an uptick in the number of applications submitted, as this is creating opportunities for students to really assess, which institution, best fits their needs,
Right.
creating more real opportunity for them to look at those aid offers or award offers as well. I don't know if you have anything to add with that.
And I want to also mention that I met with K-State, the data engineers that worked on, all the surveys and assessments that they take on the university. I don't know if they're gonna make those updates, but when a student joins in, they have about 10 or 15 questions they ask a student, and then that goes into the survey. I suggested they would ask one more question saying that would a free application day really matter to you for your application? That would see that the yield is connecting back to that particular aspect. And it's just one question for us to know directly from our students. And so if across the universities, if we do that, we can definitely get that information for sure. Yeah, that's just wanted to mention that.
Any other thoughts or questions on this topic?
I think Jill has her hand up.
Yeah, I can't remember. Do you mind if I share something real quick?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I can't remember if this was in the document. I know it's been mentioned multiple times. I just want to remind Basque that our universities have a number of other application opportunities, free application opportunities. So a question like that may not, while I appreciate the question, it may not get us exactly what we're needing in terms of understanding the apply free day data. So just a thought there.
I guess we are not, I mean, that's, thank you, I didn't know that. I'm not sure if the rest of the regions knew that they had other free application days. But it doesn't matter, I guess, the initiative from a university saying, removing that burden or that hurdle for a student, did it make a difference? Right, whether it is the 3-day that the regions put in together as a good unified approach, or is a separate approach by universities, no matter what, is that a burden? Sometimes $150 could make a difference for a student. And so that's what
Well, and I appreciate that. And there may be a point in time, I think, where we can possibly talk about or report on what those other mechanisms are. So for example, I think what Jill's referring to, and I believe all of our universities have available a waiver process. You have to click, I need a waiver, though. So to that point, the difference is how proactive are we? So anybody who applies to KU, for example, can note, I'd like a waiver of the application fee. And then that's pretty much automatically granted, for reasons, Pell eligibility, et cetera. This is just capturing 3 days a year where people don't even have to click that box, and we're out there promoting, you should apply to college. And then that's kind of, what are the parameters around applying for the college? So I think we can think a little bit more about what your suggestion is, because what I hear in that is you'd like to know, does it really have an impact, and how do we know it has an impact? And so
basically, I think you spoke about the ROI, the rhetoric in the community, saying higher education is probably not really required to get into a job, but to get into qualified jobs and keep your career to the best of its ability, definitely this absolutely helps. There's no difference about it. And I believe the communities and students are acknowledging and aware of that, but it makes a huge difference. Small fees, book fees, small entry fees, these make a huge difference in a majority of our students and kids. And so, and knowledge of that existing, like what you said, I'm pretty sure my daughter paid for the application fee because she didn't know. And I don't need a waiver, but just the knowledge of that, right, makes a huge difference. And a lot of it plays on the marketing side of how we spread that knowledge. Thank you.
As we move forward, I think we can continue to have these conversations and determine what the best course of action is as far as how we obtain that data to just kind of keep us informed. So I want to clarify before we make a motion here. The staff recommendation is that we approve the apply free days October 6th through 8th for 2025. Now, are we approving that to continue on for years to come within those same days, or just for the 2025? What was the staff's recommendation for that? So I know initially, I think we talked about continuing the pilot or just establishing it as a routine thing that we do.
So this recommendation was just for 2025 and then reassessing once we have the kids' data and additional data to be able to establish that as a program or discontinue or, whatever is the BAS purview at that point.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, if there are any other questions or further discussion on this topic, I would entertain a motion to approve the Kansas reapplication days for October 6th through 8th, 2025.
I'm happy to move.
Second,
Second, and also just thank you to the provost. I appreciate the work that you put into giving us that information. I thought your suggestions were good ones.
okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. We will move on to Dr. Monholland, who will talk to us about the next 3-year cycle performance agreements.
Yes, the provosts have heard this, but I want to communicate to the members of BAS that we are in the second year of a 3-year performance agreement cycle. The next cycle would begin in, let's see if I can get this right, for the academic year 2027. That would be roughly a year and a half from now when that would begin. So staff and I have been talking and we just want to get it on everyone's mind that this is coming up and we need to begin thinking about what these performance agreements should look like. Are we going to use particular metrics? What would those metrics be? Are there specific achievements or milestones or initiatives that we're working on? We want the institutions to complete and implement. It's my understanding that what we're doing this particular cycle is really around implementation of various initiatives. So it's not like checking off, you hit 80% of whatever, but are you doing the work that's required to implement these initiatives? So nothing's been decided. We've just been thinking about this and we don't want to wait until the last minute. And I don't think we'll begin this work anytime soon, but I think sometime after the beginning of the new academic year, we'll need to start convening folks and working in earnest on these new agreements.
Thank you. Are there any thoughts or questions on that for Dr. Monholland?
How often, and again, this is me coming in new, how often do we look at those?
The agreements are for 3 years, so
Okay.
it's really a perpetual 3-year cycle. So I assume about 3 years ago we began working on the current one, which was, it's my understanding, a bit of a departure from what we had done previously. So I don't think anything's etched in stone that you can only do it one way. But whatever direction we want to go, we need to begin thinking about that. I want to solicit input, obviously, from the provosts and across their campuses, but also I think BASC needs to be involved in this and engaged in the work so that what we come up with is something the board will support. I think the board will be involved at various stages as well. But it's just really to get it on everybody's mind and not be surprised when we convene some kind of group or I guess I need to figure out exactly how do we negotiate these. I haven't done this before, but I think there's plenty of people who have that knowledge and will work through that process as it develops in the coming months.
I did have a couple of questions and more just to refresh me. So like it's implementation of math pathways, degree mapping, that type of thing. So going forward, will it sort of be like the natural evolution? So now you've implemented, show me, the results of that. Is that sort of what we're thinking? More like
I don't know that
But-
I'm thinking
so-
about anything specific. I think
Right.
that could be a possibility. We would have to, think if that's what we wanted to do, well, where, what baseline are we going to use? Is there a target we would have in terms of expectations that the institutions would hit? And remember, we're not going to have much data on math pathways,
Right.
degree maps and all of these. So I think we would kind of be flying on, I don't even think we'd have instruments. We'd just be, hoping we kept the horizon out in front of us. Because, it'd be hard to set metrics without that data, and we
Right.
won't have that data probably till what, FY 28, kind of the first,
Definitely
Spring of
lag, yeah.
28.
yeah.
I guess we can focus the metrics on actions rather than results at this point.
And it could be an incremental process too. The first year would be
What-
something,
Yeah.
and then the second year we could bring some metrics into the conversation, and the third year, additional work as well. But I think that's why we need to start thinking about it now.
Yeah.
So that we're not, like my dad always said, we need to make it look like something that was planned rather than something that just happened, so.
Hopefully we'll plan it.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And right now, it's so, for the performance agreements, the expectation is the same for across the system, whether you're community college, technical
Yes.
college. Okay, I was thinking that's the way it was.
Yeah,
but
and
I
it's,
wasn't
again,
sure.
it's all geared at,
So,
by certain, what is it, this fall, you'll have at least one section of a co-requisite math and English. By the following fall, it'll be fully implemented. So, again, going back to the metrics, if it's fully implemented in about a year and a half, we're going to have, there's a significant lag in terms of collecting data. And we really need to set a baseline too, so that we know where we started to gauge if there's been any progress or improvement.
I'm wondering if it would be helpful for the other committee members to see the previous performance agreements
Sure.
and the new ones, just to kind of see what they've been in the past and how they've changed. I know I'm familiar with them, but I don't know that everybody on the committee is, but just to kind of give them an idea of what those have looked like in the past.
Sure, we can certainly do that.
Be very helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts on this topic? All right, thank you, Dr. Monholland. All right, so we will move on to a report on the reverse transfer, the annual reverse transfer report from Misty.
We provide this report again every year. We provided it this morning to SCOCO and then now to BASC, really to inform the reverse transfer process. So in today's presentation, I'm going to begin with outlining the reverse transfer procedures, followed by an update including the 2024 reverse transfer data. So the data presented will focus on 5-year trends, really offering a more comprehensive analysis of the reverse transfer process. We're hoping to really identify opportunities for enhancements or efficiencies in the process. So today you'll hear there is an increase in the number of students referred in 2024, while the number of associate degrees awarded has declined. So reverse transfer is a process of retroactively granting associate degrees from the most recently attended 2-year institution by combining the credits received at the 2-year institution and 4-year institutions. Next slide. So board policy establishes this as a seamless process to help students obtain the associate degrees that they have earned along the way. This process is known as reverse transfer. It allows the eligible students to, again, receive those credentials that they have earned retroactively. And there is a reverse transfer working group that oversees this work and really looks at the data in order to create more efficiencies within that process. The procedures are reviewed annually by the reverse transfer working group. And we also bring in the reverse transfer institutional contacts into those conversations to really understand and assess the process, again, for those efficiencies. And those procedures are approved through SCOCO and SCOPS as any changes are needed. So the most recent changes occurred in December, and I'll talk about that here shortly. But this process was designed by institutions for institutions. The reverse transfer procedures can be found on the kansasregents.org website under academic affairs and under reverse transfer. There's also a plethora of additional data on there, not only from 2023, but also 2024 as well. Slide. So the procedures outline the process for which 4-year and 2-year institutions participate in the reverse transfer process. They're linked here as well as on our website. Just a quick summation of the current reverse transfer process. I'll explain why I say current here in just a moment. Again, these were approved in December, but universities identify reverse transfer eligible students who have 60 credit hours completed. And the students have to have at least 15 credit hours from the 2-year institution to be eligible for this process. Universities obtain consent from students through an opt-in process. This could be through email campaigns, pop-up menus, student portal, consent on their application. Each institution approaches this opt-in process differently. This is a very key part of the process, as you'll see today. Some universities, again, are utilizing National Student Clearinghouse. We're actually shifting to the National Student Clearinghouse now, based on the December approval of the reverse transfer procedures. So we'll see an impact in that data, hopefully, in future years. So then after that opt-in, the consent is received, universities send transcript data by various means to the 2-year institutions, and that is sent after each semester is complete. And then 2-year institutions log those transcripts as received and begin evaluating. In this process, the 2-year institutions are completing a degree audit. So just really trying to understand, which of those credits completed, apply to either their original major or an alternative associate degree at that 2-year institution. And then the degree is recorded on their transcript, and that is reported back to the university. The 2-year institutions notify students by typically sending a letter that their degree has been awarded, and then the transcript is sent to the university. So they're informed about this process. And then if they do not have the credits required for an associate degree, they're being sent information outlining the requirements that have not been met. So now we'll dive into the reverse transfer data, which will follow the previous version of the reverse transfer procedures.
Missy,
So-
sorry,
Go ahead.
could I just ask a quick question before I forget? If it's okay.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, Casey. Celebrate with savings on rec.
We always like savings. Let's celebrate that any day. On the opt-in and opt-out, so I know we've talked about that a lot through the years. So if it's opt-in, is that a question that is asked students during the admissions process?
Really depends on each institution, and they can certainly speak up, but some have that on their application. Others have it on like their student information system like Canvas. It'll be a pop-up menu or other avenues to obtain those consents.
And
varies.
what's the reason for not doing opt-out, which would obviously identify a lot more students? We've probably been over this 100 times, but can you refresh me
Okay.
on why we don't do opt-out, which would be, I would think, would certainly generate a lot more in terms of those that know that they're eligible.
Yeah, so there's some concerns with privacy that our general counsels, not only at the universities, but also here at K-Board.
So FERPA.
Yeah, It would be great. There's actually a Reverse Transfer Efficiency Act, the Supreme Court level that I haven't tracked that recently, but it would certainly streamline that as far as it being an opt-out process.
Yeah, I think it would be
Our hands are kind of
beneficial.
tied.
One more question, and I can't remember the answer to this. So let's say that you have 2 or 3 community colleges or technical colleges combined to get your 15 hours. Does it go by the last one that you completed hours at, or how does that work?
So our reverse transfer procedure is outlined. It's the most recently attended. They can talk to that if there is some concern, or there's for 15 credit hours at multiple institutions. Some of our institutions have noted that they can speak to that student and ask, which institution they would like to obtain that degree through.
And I assume that has to, because HLC would tell you that, you'd have to have a certain number of hours to be able to seek, a degree from that institution. So I suppose that would come into play as well. So,
I
okay.
believe it's just the 15 hours though.
Yeah, you'd have to have 15, just like I
That's the minimum, yeah.
couldn't get a degree from Harvard with 3 hours, even though I'd like to. Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. So as we dive into this data, I just want to note the reverse transfer procedures were updated in December. This data is going to be based on the previous procedures, which were students were being referred at 45 credit hours. So as we just go through the 2024 data, it's based on the 45 credit hours. In the future, it will be the 60 credit hours where students are being then referred back to the 2-year institutions. Last slide. Go back. So this process begins with a student referral. So once students are opting in, they're referred back to that 2-year institution. Here we see the 5-year totals of referrals made by universities, with WSU leading these efforts. But starting at the top with Emporia State, declined the number of students referred since 2022. It's really hard to see here. I'm not sure why it's, but they are small cell protected, but just to kind of give you an idea, Fort Hays increased by 1 since 2022. K-State has shown an increase. Pitt State remained relatively stable. KU saw a decrease in referrals. Wichita State also shown an increase compared to the last couple years, and Washburn saw a slight increase since last year. So as a system, 1,764 student referrals have been made over the last 5 years, with 339 referrals made solely in 2024. So overall, through 2024, we saw positive trends in the number of student referrals made by the universities, particularly when we compare it to the last couple of years. It's important to note that there's several variables really in play here that we've kind of touched on. This includes the number of students who are eligible based on the number of credit hours completed at that 2-year institution being the 15, and then also the 45 credit hour threshold, but also the student opt-in process as well. Next slide. So we highlight here the 5-year trends in associate degrees. Well, this is 5-year, again, 5-year associate degrees awarded. So for our total public institutions for the 5 years, we would see 785 associate degrees awarded in total. So these are students who have earned that credential. Next slide. Once the 2-year institutions receive the student referral from the university, they initiate that degree audit process. The exchange of the transcript data takes place, and then we see a summation of the total of completions here. Again, it's hard to see. These students met the degree requirements, either of the original major or an alternative associate degree. So again, 785 associate degrees were awarded as a system, as we saw in the last slide over those 5 years. This is just showing you by institution, if we could see it. So this is an examination of the associate degrees awarded by year. So from 2020, 2021, 2022, 23, and 24. So this is where we're observing the downward trend in those associate degrees awarded by the two-year institutions. On the far right, you can see which university is providing the most referrals to that respective two-year institution. Just a couple of highlights here. Allen Community College experienced an increase in the past 5 years, and then Neosho saw an increase in the past 5 years as well. So now we'll move to the conversion rates of student referrals to associate degrees awarded over 5 years. So of the referrals made to the two-year institutions, again, this is the number of students receiving that associate degree. The system-wide conversion rate of referrals to associate's degrees awarded was 34%. Next slide. The highest rate of return comes from Butler at 55%. So this is meaning that just over half of the transcripts they received, after the degree audits are being awarded that associate degree. Other conversion rates, just to highlight here, Neosho is at 45%, Fort Scott and Coffeyville is at 44%, with Hutch and Cloud at 42%. So now I want to expand on this data by year, looking at it by universities. So this is when this process really comes full circle. And the rate of return from the universities that referred those transcripts to your institutions. Next slide. So on here, just a couple of highlights. While we saw a couple slides ago that Emporia State and Fort Hays State didn't have that many referrals in total, their rate of return from those two-year institutions that are, awarding those associate degrees is actually the highest among our four-year institutions here. So they're seeing the highest rate of return over the last 5 years. Slide. So when analyzing the data, it was observed that approximately 25% of the student transcripts referred back to the two-year institutions resulted in an associate degree awarded within that same year. An additional 11% of students received their associate degree 1 year after that referral. So this 2-year period was pretty significant. So I wanted to assess that data a little further, and that's what we see here. So we're examining the 2023 and the 2024 number of students who had accumulated the 45 credit hours there on the left, combining those credits with the 2-year and the 4-year credits. That's what makes the 45 credit hours. Then you see the number of students who were referred back to the 2-year institutions. So the referred head count, comparing that to the number of students who are eligible, is what we're seeing here in this slide. So we're able to see how many students are eligible but are not being transferred, not being referred back to those 2-year institutions. So this gap could indicate a few things here. One of which students may not be opting into that reverse transfer process. WSU actually had the highest referral rate at about 9 to 10% of eligible students being referred. Next slide. So over the past couple of years, the Reverse Transfer Working Group has been meeting pretty regularly and really focusing on further analyzing the data and streamlining that reverse transfer process further. And in December, you guys approved the reverse transfer procedures. Those changes, again, were increasing the 45 credit hour threshold to 60 credit hours. And then we also you guys approved the use of the National Student Clearinghouse as the free data exchange service for reverse transfer, and that will start with fall 2025. So we are anticipating seeing some efficiencies in our processes as our institutions right now are going through that implementation process, migrating to the National Student Clearinghouse, which we're super thankful for the work happening at the campuses with that, as I know it is It's a pretty big transition. But essentially what that's going to do is, instead of sending these transcripts potentially, email, mail, they're utilizing that National Student Clearinghouse, uploading that, and it's a pretty efficient process back and forth for reverse transfer. Next steps, our institutions are going to review the contacts for reverse transfer. And again, they're an important piece to the reverse transfer procedures, really informing that process. And then also, I just highly recommend institutions share the reverse transfer procedures annually with their staff, just to ensure departments are aware of that process in order to create, again, more efficiencies between, our 4 years and our 2-year institutions. That'll stand for questions.
I just have a suggestion on the data when we are showing the data. Is there a way we can show it as a graphical representation? That way we can I know it's hard to see the data as such, but maybe having a graphical presentation would give us an idea as to which trend we are following. But that's,
All on one.
it's a lot of information, but thank you.
Any other thoughts or questions? Thank you for that report. We are moving on to the Launch Years Initiative update. Not sure who's presenting on. Sam?
I can read that from
Okay,
Jen.
thank you.
Jen is on a cruise, darn her.
Oh
I'm
my
not jealous or
goodness.
anything. So Jen and 4 others attended the Dana Center Launch Years Initiative annual convening in Austin, Texas toward the end of February. The team represented a diverse cross-section of Kansas education, including technical colleges, community colleges, 4-year institutions, and K-12 partners. Throughout the convening, the Kansas team participated in sessions on a wide range of topics, including reimagining high school math, STEM-specific issues in higher education, state policy scans, and the critical role of advisors in Math Pathways implementation. In addition to attending these sessions, the team took time to map both successes and challenges from the past 2 years and collaborated with Kansas State Department of Education to develop a communication plan for sharing Math Pathways updates from higher education with K-12 schools across the state. Notably, Kansas's state policies were highlighted as a model for other states. Additionally, Kansas' strong faculty participation in professional development and the stability of the Kansas Launch Years team, with many members serving in their roles for multiple years, were recognized as best practices. The convening provided valuable insights and reinforced the importance of continued collaboration across K-12 and higher education to support student success in math, and key concepts and next steps will be further explored at the March Executive Implementation Team meeting, and that's going to be on March 28th.
Good, thank you. Sounds like a good conference.
I think it was. I wasn't there, but
Do we have any other matters to come before the committee this morning?
I would like to mention that last Thursday I had the pleasure of meeting with the University of Kansas Faculty Senate. Some of you may have seen a letter that the Senate sent to the board, to President Flanders and others, in which they raised some concerns, their concerns about primarily about the system-wide general education. So I met with them. We talked for about an hour, I believe. I listened to their concerns. We had a good discussion back and forth on kind of where the board stands, how we got to that point, why some decisions were made. I think I have a good understanding of, where they're coming from and where their concerns rest. I made no promises that, we'll just fix this or anything like that, but Sam and others, we have received, I'm not sure, complaints, concerns about how the process is working. Some, kind of minor little things. Could we do this or could we do that? We talked that we needed to take a fresh look at the policy, the process, since, you know, it's now in effect, it's now in action, to see where we might tweak it a little bit, take, you know, some of the rough edges off so it works primarily for students to help them transfer and keep the credits that they've earned, but also make the administration of the process a little bit better. I thought we would maybe wait a full year, but as we've been talking, I think this is something we want to probably begin having conversations about sooner rather than later. I haven't put a date on it yet, but probably before this year, this annual year is academic year is out. We're going to begin taking a fresh look at the system-wide general ed not with the intent of overhauling it. Certainly, we need to let it operate to see how it is actually performing. But I think there are some areas that we can kind of burnish the rough edges and make it work a little more smoothly, clarify some things that maybe got overlooked in the implementation that I think will make the process work better for both students and institutions. So I wanted to share that with Basque and let you all know that this is a task that staff and I will begin undertaking on here very soon.
Thank you for that update. I think it's always important to take a fresh look at things, so I appreciate that. Any other items to come before the committee?
I would just quickly say thank you to Rusty for doing that. And I know that our faculty felt very heard by that, so I appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing that. I just want to thank the academic affairs staff. I know that you guys put a lot of work into everything that we discuss here at our meeting. So thank you for your hard work, and thank you to the provost for collaborating and sharing your thoughts on the different topics that we've had. So if there aren't any other items to come before the board, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I can move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.